And let's go to top story. One of the big global voices, the Indian origin CEO of US-based payment company Mastercard, Banga, has come out in defense of Indian government on reforms. Banga said 1 or 2 quarters of slow economic growth shouldn't impact pace of reforms. Let's hear what he had to say in this exclusive conversation. Whatever is happening in India at this moment, what are your views on the pace of reforms?
I think India is going through a very exciting change. And, as an outside CEO, I don't believe my job is to be comfortable or not. My job is to look at what India is doing to change its opportunity and then adjust my company to take advantage of that opportunity and to provide the right service. So digitization is a great opportunity. We're working on everything from expansion of card payments to QR acceptance to digital wallets to using the tools of Aadhaar and UPI to make a lot of things possible.
The government is facing a lot of criticism. Do you also stand by few points that growth is coming down, or do you think it's a short-term pain which is needed for long-term gain?
My view is that India has made enormous change in the last 2 decades. Look at our FDI, look at our GDP, look at our foreign reserves. And so trying to put India's growth and its history into a quarter here or there, that's not what I'm a believer in. Reform is hard. The nature of the word reform means it's going to have a degree of this sort of movement and disturbance. That's kind of what you're dealing with. But the basics of what they're putting into place to formalize the economy, to bring more employees and people into the formal economy, to help promote skills, to help promote tourism, to help fix bank balance sheets. These are all outstanding, even and beyond the digitization. Everybody's talking about digitization, but actually there's a lot of things the government is doing that I find is really interesting. I want to make sure you understand these are not just being done for the last 2 or 3 years. The Indian government has been working on change for the last 10, 15, 20 years. The pace of change seems to be accelerating in the last few years.
Last 2 quick questions I would like to ask you. You are also on US advisory committee for trade policy. So you said that Trump is a practical person and the ties will be very good and he will really help going forward in trade ties. So what do you mean by that statement, and how do you see US and India cooperation going forward? As we speak, yesterday the first crude of US has landed in India too.
Yeah, so look, I'm a believer that the US and India are the 2 world's largest democracies. India and the US have strategic interests that go beyond economics. They're all about geopolitics and strategy as well as economics. Socially, our values are very similar. We care about the same things. We're basically capitalist economies. And I would say that therefore there's a lot to bind us together. I can see that trend accelerating in the last 5, 7, 8 years. And my opinion is it's only going to get better. They're large and they're growing. If you look at ties with commerce, and if you look at the level of educational exchange, that how many students come to the US to study, this is a very deep-rooted connection. So I'm generally very optimistic about US-India relationships for the next decade.
One last question to you would be about Bitcoin. So the whole world is divided. Goldman Sachs really want to go, and they are now, they want to try Bitcoins and that cryptocurrency. While JP Morgan, they don't want to touch that. What's your opinion? Bitcoin, is it here to stay? Is it legal currency? What should be the
My view is that the blockchain, which is the underlying technology under the Bitcoin, is a really interesting technology. As you saw me talk about a little earlier, I think it can be used for many interesting things. A lot of work has to happen with the blockchain to make it achieve its full potential, but there's something there. Bitcoin to me is not the same as blockchain. Bitcoin is a currency built on top of this that has limited supply. You cannot possibly play with it the way you need to. It's anonymized. You can't run currencies and stuff of that type across the global banking system with anonymization at the core of what you're doing.
So
it just doesn't work.
From your side?
I'm not a believer in the Bitcoin. I've been saying this for years that I like the blockchain, but I'm not a believer in Bitcoin as an example of using the blockchain. I think the blockchain can be used in many different ways.